Welcome to Psalm 41, and this is the last psalm in book 1 of the Psalms. Okay, so the book of Psalms is divided into 5 books internally. This is the end of the first collection. Next time we'll be back with Psalm 42 and we'll carry straight on, except we'll have a different look to the video just to kind of mark off the books as we go. So Psalm 41 is a Psalm of David again, and we're jumping in the middle to notice who is being referenced, okay? Because as we go on further, we'll realize, oh, that's quite significant. Now, naturally, when you read it, and then you get a trigger to make you probably go back and notice. You don't automatically notice these things first time you read them. But let me flag them for you. He begins in verse 4, the section we're looking at, talking about himself. Okay, we've got these me's and I's in here. As for me, I said, O Lord, be gracious to me. Heal me, for I have sinned against you. My enemies say of me in malice, when will he die and his name perish? So there's a kind of a switch there. Verse 4, I've sinned. I've brought trouble on myself. I need the Lord to bring healing. Okay, then verse 5, my enemies maliciously against me. Then he goes specific. When one comes to see me, he utters words, while his heart gathers iniquity. When he goes out, he tells it abroad. So there's enemies, and there's a specific troublemaker, shall we call him, in verse 6. Verse 7, all who hate me whisper together about me. They imagine the worst for me. That continues in verse 8. They say a deadly thing is poured out on him. He will not rise again from where he lies. And notice verse 9. Even my close friend, in whom I trusted, who ate my bread, has lifted his heel against me. That's painful, isn't it? Even my close friend has lifted his heel against me. When a heel is coming against you, it usually means you're on the ground and very vulnerable. It's not a pleasant experience. And so verses 4 to 9 give us this list of people. David himself has sinned against the Lord. He has enemies who are malicious towards him. He has a troublemaker who is particularly focused on in verse 6, verses 7 and 8, all who hate him. And then verse 9, even my close friend. Now, this may seem familiar to you. This John chapter 13, verse 18, Jesus quotes this verse in reference, of course, to Judas Iscariot. Isn't it a comfort to know that whatever bad experiences we may go through in life, Jesus has experienced those things kind of to the max. Ultimate betrayal. How about Judas Iscariot betraying Jesus for money? Okay, so that's certainly well worth pondering. We're approaching Easter. It's really, really relevant to go to John 13 and to just keep on reading. But for now, we're in Psalm 41. And so David talking about himself, his enemies, a troublemaker, everyone who hates him, even his close friend. Why do we need to notice that? Well, if we were reading through it, even if you didn't notice the accumulation of people, hopefully you would notice this. But you, O Lord, be gracious to me. Here's a contrast. And so as you're reading, you come to verse 10 and you might think, but you, like, what's the contrast with? Well, verse 9, interesting. Yeah, verse 8, verse 7, it goes right the way back, doesn't it? Who can we trust? Can we trust our enemies? No. Troublemakers? No. What about ourselves? What about close friends? Ultimately, who can we trust? The answer is the Lord. He is the one who is consistently gracious to me. You might recognize that. That was back in verse 4. O Lord, be gracious to me. And so here the contrast is set out. That unlike others, even the closest of friends, even ourselves, unlike anyone else, the Lord can be trusted to be gracious to us. Raise me up that I may repay them. And so it's a good psalm to ponder, to read, to think about, and to remind ourselves, even if we're really blessed with friends and good church and good family and so on, ultimately, our ultimate trust has to be in the Lord. He's the only one who can be and will be consistently gracious towards us. Notice at the end of the psalm, blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, from everlasting to everlasting. Feels fairly final. Well, how about this? Amen and amen. You only get that the double amen at the end of the 5 books of the Psalms. So be on the lookout for those. We'll see another one in the early 70s. I think it's 72, then 89 and 106. And then hopefully at the end, I'm not sure if that follows through. You can check it out. Feel free to have a little sneaky look ahead. It doesn't really make much difference, to be honest, but it's worth noticing these things as we go. So there you go, Psalm 41. Read it, share highlights with others, and let it drive you to express your gratitude to God. Let it drive you to pray to Him and reassert again that you're looking to Him and trusting Him to be gracious to you. See you next time for Psalm 42 as we begin the adventure of Psalms, Book 2.